So Mick, we've come up here on early morning, which we often do, or you certainly often do, more than most these days. And these are the kind of conditions, this is what happens up here, where it can go from absolutely stunning, beautiful, clear visibility, especially if you're sky watching or you're, I don't know, a lot of the time you're coming up here looking for the big cat. Not likely to see it in weather like this.
So I'm up here this morning with Chris Turner. We're having a walk round, seeing if we can see anything unusual. Plus you brought your camera equipment with you as well, because the documentary we're making about Winter Hill.
Yeah, we better get round to finishing that. So yeah, I mean it's forecast is really nice, but this is Winter Hill all over this, because we've come up here to get some, you know, a lot of B-roll, some interviews and some drone footage really, and we're just fog laden, and this is kind of what happens with Winter Hill. You never really know what you're going to get, and that's the difficulty with filming in these areas, I suppose. But it's also the difficulty in, if you've come to look at the phenomena, you've got to get lucky, because not only are you fighting against the chance of seeing something, but you're now fighting the weather. And actually it's probably similar up Bempton as well. That's a similar place where you try and go and film the phenomena and the weather turns, or it just doesn't play ball with you. So we seem to be up against it in these paranormal areas for some reason. But on a, you know, it's not always like that, is it? And hopefully it will clear later and we can get some really nice footage. But
well, we've been here quite a long time this morning, haven't we? We've been here, what time did you set out? About 20 to 7.
Yeah.
So when we got up here, it was pretty dark. So we were expecting a clear morning, but yeah.
Well, we're hoping to get obviously you're hoping to get sunrise with the lights of the mast, and it all looks beautiful, and you end up with nothing basically. So we try again, maybe, you know, in a few days time probably. Let's see if it clears, but we'll get some nice stuff today, because it's a beautiful spot anyway, Winter Hill. But and I suppose if you're making a documentary about paranormal occurrences, it looks the part at the moment with the fog and the weather. But yeah, that's what we're up against at the moment. But so what case wise, Mick, what have you been getting? Have you got anything recent?
Well, the last one I got was over in Roddlesworth side.
Oh, I was there last week.
And yeah, you go up there quite a bit, don't you?
I do, because it's actually, you know, bar paranormal, you know, encounters and sightings and witness stories, it's a nice place to be, isn't it?
It is.
It's not quite as busy as this, I don't think. You know, Winter Hill has become there's a lot of hikers and ramblers. In fact, it's busier than ever, I think, since what happened in 2020, and when people were indoors for a year or two. People now seem, which is great, people take advantage of nice days and time off, and people want to get out in the fresh air, which is great. But how fresh the air is, well, that's another story. So what was that encounter over there that you took in Roddlesworth?
So that was a shadow being, a shadow man type entity.
All right.
That wild camper, he was out there, and it was just not exactly dark, but it was going dark. Enough to see without a torch anyway.
Yeah.
And he saw this shadow entity. He heard a noise first, he looked up and he saw this shadow entity, like a human type shaped body, but it was sort of swaying, stood at the side of a tree swaying and watching him.
Right.
And he said it really freaked him out, to the point where he just grabbed his bag, left his stuff and ran back to his van.
He left his kit behind?
He left his kit behind, never went back for it. I do know that a couple of wild campers who actually go in there, they do tidy up after people, and they ended up taking his tent and his stuff.
So when was this?
So this was quite recently, you know, like maybe 2018, 19.
All right.
I can't think off the top of my head now. And Yeah, he was sat there, he heard this noise, he looked up, he sees his shadow being, and he's near to the road at that point, but this thing is in between him and the road. Right. So he runs a different way. And as he's, running, he's grabbing his stuff. He's not running, but moving pretty fast.
Yeah.
So as he's doing that, and he's going in one direction, he gets to this brook where he can't really jump over. He has to go sort of a bit further down the brook.
Yeah.
And get to the stepping stones to get over the other side.
I see.
And as he gets here, he turns round and it's her in tree line again, watching him. Weird. You know, it's actually followed him. So he carries on running, panicking at the time. He gets so far near towards where his van is. He sees his van, thinks, you know, things are a bit calmer. He's feeling a little bit calmer. He turns round to have a quick look, and it's her right behind him, about 2 meters behind him, just almost looming over him at this point. He just, well, you can imagine, he just got in van and he went. He actually moved home. He's moved from where he was living near to where this happened in Roddlesworth, and moved into a place in Manchester, and he actually bought a flat with his family because he didn't want to be anywhere near Roddlesworth anymore, or near any area where there's any parkland.
Really?
He purposely went living in the city to get away from any
so it's traumatised him badly. Yeah, in that case. I mean, they must have.
Well, this is a man who was out nearly all his life. He's been out wild camping. Yeah. And to never do it ever again.
And it's weird that, because you do hear that with a lot of encounters here and overseas, very similar. If you, a lot of the American Canadian hunters, when, you know, often once they have one of these encounters, it can, in some cases, they never go out again, or it takes a long time for them to venture out again.
Yeah.
Which is understandable, really, if you think about it. You know, all that time you never really knew what. And I think the same goes for a lot of us. We investigate this phenomena, we don't necessarily experience it in a traumatic way, so we don't consider the consequences of, you know, what can happen on very rare occasions. So although a lot of us want to see it, sometimes, like the saying goes, be careful what you wish for.
Well, true. Yeah. Well, not only that, I mean, we get out there and we do have strange things happening to us, but we don't tend to, because we're out there looking for it, it doesn't seem to bother us as much as it would do somebody who's just come across it. Oh, like
absolutely. That. Yeah, I mean, we're, like you said, we've got awareness that there's a potential.
Yeah.
Whereas people not from the subject have no idea, they never think about this, so it must be really odd, actually. It must be. You can understand how scary it would probably be.
Well, we're in that area. I was in there with a couple of people on just a couple of days ago. We'd gone up at night to have a look round, and we heard a noise. We heard this, like, almost like a breathing around us, only for a second, and it went, and then we heard sort of footfall, and that was it. But at the time it was happening, because we'd gone up there with a few cameras and we were doing a bit of filming, we didn't think that much of it. We just like spoke about it, and oh, did you hear that, or what did you hear, sort of thing. Yeah. And we just carried on as normal, like you do. But any other people who aren't into this really and what we do, they'd probably crap the pants.
Well, you'd panic, I suppose. And I think it goes to show that, you know, more often than not, I would say 99% of the cases that we were saying earlier, you don't hear very negative encounters, if you know what I mean. I mean, some people consider it an encounter negative just because they've seen something, or on occasion they'll get Well, I would have thought that it's pretty natural to get a weird feeling if you see something unusual. I mean, on occasion you get a negative energy with some of these things, but it's a bit like the two lads that thought they saw something they couldn't really identify with the sheep killings. A few years ago.
Yeah.
They don't know what they saw, but it were clearly interested in the sheep. It wasn't interested in them. And that's the thing with if it is a cryptid or whatever it was, if it was something like that, even if it's not, you know, here in Winter Hill, even if it's something somewhere like, I don't know, anywhere across the country where these things are happening, there's enough food in Great Britain for a lot of cryptids, to be fair. We've got, you know, millions of sheep, millions of deer. They're not short of food, so there's never going to be an issue where, you know, a bit like America, where on occasion you'll hear about something like that happened in LBL, but I think that's very, very rare. Very rare.
As I think definitely that is a very rare case. That it definitely is, because we've never had anything like that over here, have we?
No.
Only what we think with animal kills.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it kind of makes sense to a degree that if these things are intelligent, the last thing you want to do is draw attention to yourself.
Yeah.
And, you know, even if you're preying on cattle and sheep, there is potential to draw attention to yourself, so you're certainly not going to tackle a human. You know, that's just going to bring the wrong sort of attention.
Bye. Bye.
So yeah, it's isn't it strange how clear it's been? You just drop down into this little, further down from the top where I mean, we still can't see the mast, which was the whole idea of coming filming. So we come to film the mast and the landscape, and that's kind of what you get.
So behind us we've got cloud, low cloud, well, fog really, and then in front it's that.
And you know, I don't necessarily know whether it was forecast as well, because I think it was forecast to be a very sunshiny day, clear skies. When I looked yesterday, that's what it said.
Yeah, it did say that.
But it does change quick, to be honest. So, and already, what time are we on? It's probably about 8:30, is it?
About 8:30 now, yeah. We're here at a place called Slipper Law. My belief it's called Slipper Law because it's an old burial mound. The Vikings used to call the burial mounds the laws. So this area in which we've taken the drone up at this point, and we've sort of like had a look at to see what it looks like from above. So I thought I'd show Chris this, and his first thoughts when he saw it was, yeah, it does look a little bit strange how it is in the middle of this wooded area, and we've got this slope going up the way it's going up. So what do you think?
I think potentially, look, my expertise, I don't really have an expertise in anything other than some camera stuff, but when I look, my first thought was, it does look unusual. Now, people might argue we are on the moors, but the name seems too coincidental for me.
Definitely,
and we know that there are other mounds in the area.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to have a deeper look. I mean, you'd have to, I would imagine, be digging through physical archives at this point.
This is where we start going to the museums and looking at the archives that way, because it's not on anywhere like, you know, it's not a place to Google.
And it's not on the OS maps.
No,
as a burial mound.
The name Slipper Law is, but as a burial mound, no, it's not.
No, but saying that, imagine how many hundreds of burial mounds are not on the OS maps.
Which are a lot.
And then we actually know that they are burial mounds, and they're still not on the OS maps. So
true.
That But it's curious that, all right, look, it may not be a burial mound, but there is a layer, like you said, Mick. There's a layer that near here, isn't there?
We're not far from where we're going to be in a
Right, so we're heading over that way to where the ley line goes. It goes across. Does it go across to Winter Hill?
From a place called Roundloaf.
All right, I know where Roundloaf is. Yeah.
So we're in the middle of Angleside Moor.
Yep.
We've got this burial mound there, which seems to have quite a few layers going through it.
I see.
Now this particular one, what we're near now, will go from there heading through this way. So I mean, we don't know the width.
Well, we don't know the width.
So it could be going through this as well as other places that are of interest in that direction.
And of course, people do talk about the energy lines. I work with a guy called Ellis Taylor that researches. They're not lines. He researches sacred energy, and these things are transient.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't think we fully understand it just yet. Some people do, but certainly in this genre that we work in, this is ufology, paranormal, that kind of thing. It may or may not have it may or may not have some function. Who knows? We don't know that for sure.
Because I think the ancients knew about this, because they seem to have their burial mounds and stone circles in areas
Absolutely,
where these lines are running through.
Yeah, for sure. So they knew exactly what they were doing when they were doing it. It's just that we're just not in touch with the land anymore. I think if we fully understood the reason that the ancients chose to bury the dead or put monuments in particular spots, were to build a castle, you know, aside from military tactical choices, most people don't understand that a lot of these castles, monasteries, churches, abbeys are all on these sacred lines.
Well, they are, yeah. I mean, a lot of the churches in this country as well, there are signs that there were stone circles in them places, but before the churches
built,
the Ruston monolith is one of them.
Absolutely.
The standing stone is still there within the churchyard.
Yeah, so a lot of these places, and I said this I was talking to Paul Sinclair the other day, I mentioned it on the podcast, that we don't know the history of any of these places really. We think we do. We've got a couple of 100 years history of them. How much history before that is having an effect on potentially what we're witnessing and seeing in these strange locations, these paranormal elements that present some seemingly random, you know, so it just seems to be random. Now, the unrandom part of it is that it's repetitive, some of this stuff. When I say repetitive, I mean that the sightings keep coming.
Yeah.
So it's presenting frequently, but you've got to be here, like you and I and other researchers over the years that have frequented these areas. You've got to be here to see it.
Yeah.
And people just are not. And if you're not in tune with it and you don't know what's going on in these areas, you would never report it. And even if you did see something and you're not into this genre, are you going to tell anybody, really, unless you specifically someone asks you? Because I will and you will get talking to people in these locations, especially when they've just done it now. They see us filming. What are you filming?
Yeah.
Next question is, do we reveal what we're filming?
Yeah.
I often do now.
I got to that point where I just say what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And hand out a card.
Yeah, hand out a card.
Yeah.
People are genuinely interested in what you're doing, usually. And I'd say 10-20% of the time they have a story of their own. Whether it be a personal encounter, not in the location, or something on the location. So it's well worth just always frequenting, always speak to people. And with a burial mound, I mean, if it is a burial mound, it may not be, but I think the language that they're using to describe the location is interesting. Old Norse, which we know.
That's another thing, yeah, because this area is called Tockles. We're in Roddlesworth Wood at this point, but Tockles, the name Tock, there is an old stone in a churchyard not far from here called Toxstone.
Oh, is that?
And it has to do with a chieftain who lived around here at that around the Norse times.
Right, that's interesting.
You know, like, and yeah, this was originally called Toxland, which is now Tockles.
That's very interesting. So there's a, you know, and you find that in a lot of parts of Britain, there's a heavy Norse influence.
There definitely is.
That's there are some places there's traces of it, some places it's more evident.
Yeah.
But again, you've got to be, like you said, digging into archives, reading books, reading old literature to find out the information, and you've got to be on the ground, going into abbeys and churches and looking into...
And looking at the words of the places as well.
Yeah.
You know, like we were saying then, you know, the Norse influence, the word thwaite, when you see that in places, like we have also thwaite.
Yeah.
You know, thwaite is an old Norse word.
Yeah, so it's heavily embedded into British culture, isn't it, as well? So again, like we say, you know, this Roddlesworth and Tockles is, as you mentioned earlier, incidentally, yes, there are quite a lot of UFOs. I mean, you've got Rick's amazing UFO sighting with the 8 to 10 silver orbs that he saw around the mast, but over this side you've got 3 or 4, and I've got 2 reports of a guy that won't go on camera. Similar, he was driving home, saw the craft, filmed it on his mobile phone. It's very ropey, but we know if you try and film lights in the sky on a mobile phone at night, forget it. It's not going to happen. You need specialised kit to do it. But again, and that's just a few people that we know. So how many events, and why is it happening in this area?
And there's a lot of newspaper reports from the Bolton News.
Bolton News has got quite a decent archive.
And it's mostly along this road.
Mostly along this road, which in itself has got quite a reputation.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is, whatever it is about this place, it's very unusual, and I actually think that a lot of people that from Bolton and from the area actually, you know, probably don't even realise.
I don't think a lot of them do.
I mean, why would you?
No.
You know, why would you?
If you don't follow it, you won't know about it.
No. So where are we going to head next?
We're going to go into what I term the dark woods.
Yeah.
Because there's been a few things in there.
Okay. Should we head over there?
Yeah, let's go.
So we're on our way back, Mick, because effectively we were waiting and waiting. We came to a lower ground. We've tried everything to escape this fog today, but we just can't get out of it. So what we were planning to film for the documentary, we've got some nice mysterious looking shots on the drone, but and we've got a little bit of interview stuff for yourself, but we were really looking to film quite a few portions today, but the fog and the weather, which happens all the time, doesn't it, with filming these sorts of documentaries. The weather gets, especially in Britain, the weather just gets in the way.
Well, I think this area as well, it's got its own climate, hasn't it? You know, sometimes you can be on one side of the hill and it's like this, and you go on to the other side and it's sunny or less cloud.
Absolutely. It's just, you can't, and it's so unpredictable. That's the one, and I found that, I mean, last 10 years the weather's got more unpredictable anyway, for whatever reason, but it's just makes life difficult, because according to the forecast it should have been spot on. It was perfect, and we have waited for a specific day to do it, but look, we'll try again. But we had a good time, haven't we? Burned some calories off, filmed quite a bit of interesting stuff. We've just had a look at the burial mound, as you guys have seen. So yeah, it's been an interesting trip, and as you know, we don't have to come far to get to Winter Hill. It's not a super remote place. It's a strange place, but it's not, you know, as we've seen today, still a lot of people at the weekend out and about enjoying themselves, ramblers, mountain bikers. So yep, we'll try again.
Yeah, and dog walkers losing the dogs. Shouting while we're filming.
And Mick fluffing his lines.
Nothing new there.
No, but at least we've made some progress back on the Winter Hill film, which was been in, I don't know, production hell for 18 months at least, just because we're so busy, all of us. So no, we'll get that finished because we need to get it done. And most of it is actually, I've said this before, most of it's done. There's only a few bits. I know Lee Roscoe's busy, so we've got to find time to get Lee, all of us together, and just film all the interview sections for it, and then that's it. It should be a relatively easy cut, to be honest. And then
it's all left to you then.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, like I say, I don't think it's going to be, and we don't need it to be super complex. You know, it's what I think it might need.
We just need that story being put out there.
We just need the accounts out there, because I think by getting the accounts out there, between us, we'll get more reports.
Definitely, yeah.
And I also think that they're going to keep coming in, aren't they? It's not going to stop.
No, I don't think it will. I think we're always going to get things there. I mean, how long has it been going on? Years before I started. Steve
Murray, yeah. I mean, it's been going on. It's been going on for decades, and it's likely to continue. So we'll get this film out, and you know, for the rest of it, we'll follow up on both our channels and just keep putting content out there.
Yeah.
All right.
So yes. Thanks.
See you next time.
Thanks for coming along and joining us on our little adventure today, and see you all later.
See you later.